Alright, here we are, and we're going to be taking a look at the LEC and LCS rosters. Two things that you might notice real quick. One, I'm back at my old room. I'm just here for the holidays. I'll be back in my other apartment this weekend. And the second thing is that you'll notice that the mic quality is a little bit questionable. That's because I left my podcast mic at my apartment, so that way I didn't have to set everything up twice. So for this one video, we're going to have a little bit of the garbage headset mic, but that will not be sticking around, so don't worry about that. Anyway, the LCS and LEC rosters are basically finalized. I have 90% here. Some of this at this point is confirmed, but I have 90% to 100% in blue, and then the one yellow here for the TL jungle. We know it's a Korean import, or at least we're fairly confident it's a Korean import. I've heard Umpty. I've also seen KT Gideon as another rumor, but for the sake of this video, I will be assuming it is Umpty. But these are all of the rosters at this point. You guys have probably seen them around either like a Travis Gafford video, or you've seen LEC Wulu or the other journalists that I can't think of off the top of my head, but there was that one who was competing with Wulu the entire time. But anyway, all of this stuff is pretty much out, and I wanted to give my preseason power rankings. The big thing with these, or the way that I have them listed out here, is that they are actually already in order. So no spoilers, no nothing. These are the orders that I think that the rosters would be in terms of how strong they are. But I will start with the LCS. You guys might also remember that I posted a poll saying that I wasn't sure whether I wanted to wait until all of the roster information was done and then do a batch video, or if I wanted to do each region individually. And it was pretty close, like 50-50, so I decided that I would do LCS and LEC together, and then maybe I'll do LCK and LPL together, depending on when all of those rumors come out. But for now, we can just start out with LCS. Starting out at the bottom with IMT, I just want to say that I actually don't think that this roster looks bad at all. I feel like most of these rosters look pretty strong, surprisingly. I think that Revenge, Kenvi, both really talented players. Ablaze Olive's got potential. Tactical, a lot of people are really low on Tactical. I did think that the brief period in which he swapped in during playoffs did actually not look that bad, but Tactical has been a little bit questionable for a while, so we'll see how that roster goes. But I have them as last, not because I think that their team looks bad, but because all the other teams just look a lot better. I would say to watch out for Kenvi, though. I watched Kenvi in 100 Thieves Academy, and even before that, so I know that this guy's got it. If Kindred goes into the meta, IMT number one. If Kindred's the power pick, Kenvi's going to smurf on everybody, but we'll see. We'll see. In ninth, Golden Guardians. The thing with this roster is that River and Gory, strong picks. I like both of those players. Gory was on Nongshim. If you guys have been around on this channel, you know that I was a massive fan of that Nongshim roster. I thought they were going to make first seed at Worlds before they, didn't make Worlds at all. But I was a huge fan of that roster. Part of the reason why I continue to vouch for Doc Dom so much, even though he didn't do so hot last season. But River and Gory, really good pairing. The problem with this roster is the rest of the roster. So I feel like Licorice has been not too great for the last couple seasons. Stixay is a little bit past his prime, and who he was had a little bit of a weaker split. It really just showed that the Enchanter supports did not look the best over buying control wards, finishing Mythic at 25 minutes. All of the memes that you've been seeing, they have an impact in the games, and then so uh, they better hope it's an engaged support meta, but I don't really have faith in the bot lane or the top lane here for Golden Guardian, so I have them in ninth. TSM, eighth. So when I originally saw this roster, I was actually in my head thinking like fifth or sixth. That's before all the other banger rosters came out. But here we have Solo, Boogie, Maple, Neo, and Chime. I don't think this roster has any bad players on it. I expect that this roster could do really well. Like if this roster clicks, they could be top five, but we'll see. I'm really high on Maple. I think he's a great mid laner. I'm glad that Neo's back. I thought he was one of the more impressive ADCs before he got kicked out. Same thing with Chime. I think that Chime's got a lot of potential as a support, and then Solo's a rock as usual. So we'll see how this roster does. I have him as eighth. Dignitas in seventh. That's going to be one that a lot of people will be questioning, but to me, this roster looks like a little bit of a flop to me. On paper, it's a super team, but I feel like all of these players are past their prime or overhyped. Armut looked great in the TCL and then has not looked impressive in the LEC since. I mean, I could be wrong. Maybe now that he's in NA, Armut's going to smurf, and then Santorin will be able to control the pace. Jensen will beat everybody in lane, uh, ignore his veterancy. But we'll see. I don't really have faith in this Dig roster. I don't think it's going to go anywhere. Right ahead of them, I have the CLG roster, same roster from last year. Last year, I had predicted them to finish fifth, and so I'm like very happy about that I got that call right. But I just looked at the roster and I was like, Dokla has been smurfing in Champions Queue. Luger and Poom were one of the best academy bot lanes, so like this roster had potential from the get go, and I'm glad that they got to show it off last season, and I hope that they can continue it this season. But the top five rosters with all of the crazy imports that they have are just way too much. 100 Thieves are next up in fifth. This team is pretty much all riding on tenacity for me. I think that Closer is a good player. Bjergsen and Doublelift are veterans who are past their prime but still good. Busio is also good, but for me, whether this team sits where it does or whether it moves up will all depend on how hard Tenacity can carry, because I have a lot of faith in this guy. I think he's already one of the best top laners out of this bunch, but we'll just have to see if he can take on the challenge of it being basically his rookie season. He played like what, one game in lock-in tournament last year, so we'll see how Tenacity does. But I've been hyping up this guy for a couple of years now, so I think that he'll do really well. And if he does, it's got a lot of veterans, so their team will probably be pretty solid. Definitely a playoff lock. Next, it's TL. This team has solid bot lane. Not too sure about the mid lane. I have not watched Harry play, so I can't really say too much on that front. I have watched Umpty play, and I'll say this. He looked really, really good in playoffs in spring, and then really, really bad for all of summer. So we'll see which form he's in, but Umpty definitely has potential to be good. Again, this could also be Gideon. I've never seen Gideon play, so I can't make any judgments for that. But either way, we already know what happens when Summit goes into the LCS, and that's just that he lane gaps every single top laner he plays against. So we'll see how that goes, but I expect this team to be pretty dominant. EG, this roster has Someday and FBI are the changes. We'll see how FBI does without Huhi. He might have been getting held back a little bit in that bot lane. I don't think that FBI's ceiling is going to be as high as Danny's, but he's definitely a strong player all around. One of the better ADCs in North America for a while now. And then Someday, I do think is a little bit of a downgrade to Impact, but it's basically the same players. So you're looking at essentially a more consistent but slightly lower ceiling for EG. So that team will be strong. I'm excited to see how JoJo will look to improve. Next, you have FlyQuest. This team kind of came out of nowhere with their roster. Prince has been pretty much confirmed at this point, at least that he's going to NA, which this would be the only team he could land up on. But Prince, Ayla, super strong bot lane. Vikla, solid mid laner. Spica, even though he had a rough few seasons, I still think Spica is really good. And then, of course, you have Impact in the top lane. So I expect this roster to be very, very strong. But in number one, I have C9. I think that this roster is going to be an upgrade to last split. I think Diplex will be a better fit than Jensen, at least by the end of the split. Maybe at the beginning of the split, it won't look too good. But I do think that this is going to be a higher ceiling roster, giving Fudge, Blabber, and Berserker another year to improve, and then spend another year with support will just make the entire team flow better, I'm hoping. And if this team performs as they should just be number one again. And that's really going to do it for LCS. Moving down to LEC, the elephant in the room is that I have Vitality at the top. Look, I'm much higher on this roster than everybody else. I think that Neon, super solid ADC. Kaiser, best support in the LEC. Perks was a lot of people overlook this, but Perks was the best laning mid laner last split. And also he's fucking Perks. So, he's going to do well no matter what. Bo, most dominant split in the LPL ever by any player in the entire history of the game. I'm not exaggerating. If you don't believe me, look at the 10 games that he played for FPX. Fuck, he was crazy. He played Olaf, dominated everybody. Every pick that he went on, he crushed, like Talia, Nidalee. He played one other champion. I can't remember what it was, but the guy died like 5 times over the course of 10 games. It was so dumb. He was getting like double digit kills a game. And then this guy goes to Europe, absolutely smurfs and solo queues, pretending like European challengers are like a diamond player, piss smurfing in bronze. So, When I see Bo in a roster, I just can't imagine that this team can ever lose ever. Like Bo is just way too good of a player. Um, and then Photon is from T1 Challengers, which means that by default he doesn't suck. I mean, like we already saw Berserker, right? And T1 Challengers is always historically really good. So I think that the ceiling of this roster is the best ceiling of any team that Europe has produced since 2019 G2. So we'll see if they can match that ceiling, but if they do, they'll be the best team in the LEC by far. Next is G2. Yike was kind of a standout. Pretty solid roster overall. The rumors that I've heard are that Hansama plays better when he feels comfortable, and that was why he wasn't doing in TL. I don't know how true that is, but let's just say that it is. You have Mickey X, who I think is top 3 support in LEC. He did really well in XL last year. Um, Caps and Broken Blade, which were both solid on G2, and then G2 was second. So I see no reason why this roster would be a downgrade. I think Jungle's kind of a side grade, and then ADC might be an upgrade. Next is going to be the Rogue roster. This is the same roster as last year, but Shuganda in for Otawamne. Shuganda, the only difference is that he's a little bit more of a carry top laner, but he's been playing in the LEC on and off now, and I think he's pretty solid. So I don't think this roster is going to be any worse than they were last year. Uh, let's see. Next is XL. This roster, I think, looks really, really good. You have Odo in the top lane. My favorite mid laner in the entire West, VTO in the mid lane. Love that guy. Then you have Patrick, which I think has been looking really good for the last few splits, and Targamas, who looked great last split. Xerxes did do well in the LEC when he came in, but he was in NA and he did not look too great on Immortals. So I still have a little bit of a question mark around Xerxes. I'm surprised that they decided to replace Marcoon with Xerxes. So I don't know what happened with that, but if Xerxes plays well, this roster is going to be strong. Next, I've got Fnatic. This roster, same as last split, except new bot lane, Reckless Rux. I'm not fully sold on Rux. I don't think that playing well in 2 games at Worlds is enough to really tell for me. And I think that Reckless is going to be a downgrade from Upset. Upset was the best ADC in the league, so this Fnatic roster just looks weaker to me than last season. Next, you got Mad Lions. The main problem with this roster for me is that I just look at Karzi Hillisang and I don't see a world in which that bot lane actually works ever. Two of the most inconsistent players with extremely high ceilings and extremely low floors. So it's kind of like flipping 2 coins, and they both have to land on heads. So I don't think that bot lane is going to be doing the team any favors. So I've knocked them below all of the rosters that I think will at least be consistent. And then next I've got BDS. Adam looked really good last split. I think that a lot of people are going to underestimate him, but he looked really strong. I'm also a huge Crown Shot fan. In 2020 on Vitality, I thought Crown Shot was the best performing ADC that split, which is like a really weird statement to say because their team ended up finishing like 6th or 7th. But Crown Shot has always had like a really great awareness of where he's positioning in team fights, how to play out lanes. I just think he's a really impressive ADC. So when I see like Adam and Crown Shot on a team, Labrav is a solid support, Shadow is a solid jungler. Like I just don't think this BDS roster will be as bad as people think it will be. Next, you've got the Heretics roster with Evi, Yankos, Ruby, Jack Spectro, and Mersa. I was not super impressed by Mersa when I saw him. Um, I don't know how well Evi speaks English. I don't know how well he'll fit with the team. Evi and Yankos obviously strong players. Jack Spectra was a standout ADC, but this roster's got too many question marks for me. I don't know anything about Ruby, never seen him play, can't make a judgment. But this roster just does not look like it'll be contesting. Maybe you could pull it up to 6th tops, but that's as far as I would go. Then in 9th out of playoffs, I have SK. This roster to me is looking like a bit of a wash other than Marcoon. I really like Marcoon as a player. I hope this doesn't ruin his career, but I don't see SK making it to playoffs consistently. And then in last, I have Astralis. I know that Astralis ends up getting not last every single split, even though people keep predicting it. But this team just does not look like it has a very high ceiling at all. That's all that I have for LCS and LEC. Those are my power rankings. We'll see how close they are. Maybe they'll be completely off. But that's it. Let me know what you think, and I'm out. Peace.